Welcome back to the Simple Human Design podcast. I'm Charlie, and we're going to have a little bit of fun with this episode. Now, if you haven't listened to it already, I've actually dropped another episode, which is part one. And what we're doing in this two-part series is we are exploring celebrity and famous people human design charts. So I've already done the two sacral beings that I wanted to talk about. So in that last episode, I talked about Stephen King as a manifesting generator and also Albert Einstein as a generator. And today I want to talk about the three famous people that I have picked out for you that are projectors, manifestors, and then a reflector for you as well. So let's dive in. So I let you guys know in the last episode that the projector I wanted to talk about today was actually Obama. Now, I actually find it quite difficult sometimes to kind of like talk about one particular famous projector because actually projectors being leaders, we actually have a lot of projectors in this world who are in positions of power and positions of leadership, and sometimes it's kind of hard to see, like, are they, have they been put there for a reason? Like, are they, really in alignment with their true selves because they're, amazing projectors? And I think this is where like the confusion of how a projector is can really come into play here, because when we look at projectors, we kind of see, well, they don't have their sacral center defined. So how can they have the energy to sustain, being able to talk, being able to lead, being able to make decisions? And actually, projectors are in the perfect position to be in a position of leadership. Because if you think about Obama is not just a leader sitting at the top there and he has to make all the decisions and do everything himself. He has a huge amount of people that are working or did work underneath him. He had teams for this and that, and he has Congress, and he has his wife and a family. He's got people around him that will help him to lead the country when he was president. So it really does go to show that projectors have been brought into this world. Don't forget that projectors are the newest human design type. We came into the evolution of humanity in 1781. So we're actually very, very new. And we are actually here to lead the world into a new way of being or doing or living. And this is what we're supposed to do on our time on Earth. So with Obama, I wanted to also just kind of like reflect on the differences between the way that Obama is as a person and the way that he handled with professionalism his campaign and his presidency versus somebody else, Donald Trump. So we're going to look at those two. Now, Donald Trump, to me, this is what I see anyway. And I'm trying to keep politics out of this, by the way. I know who I like as a person and I know who I don't like as a person. But I wanted to kind of like, show you how I see the differences between them. So Donald Trump, to me, is someone who is all about himself. Every single time he does something, it's about himself. And part of that is because, he is a sacral being, and there is a tendency for sacral beings to want to know themselves, to want to understand themselves, which is why sacral beings do love human design, because they want to just know all about themselves all the time. And he's also a 1-3. Now, the 1-3 in the profile lines is a very interpersonal profile. Okay, it's the only one that has two of the numbers in the interpersonal sort of like profile line system. So 1, 2, and 3 are interpersonal. And the 1-3 can be a very selfish person in some respects, depending on other things on the chart, of course. But as a role in society, they can be very inward focused, and they can be very much like, they do things for their own gratification, their own potentially selfishness, depending on how aligned they are. So when I look at Donald Trump and the way that he acts and the way he is on social media, and the way that he kind of like reacts to things, when we had the assassination attempt, and the way that he sort of like sprung up and sort of like put his fist in the air and sort of said, yeah, I'm gonna survive, like don't be silly, like you can't kill me. it's very, very, it's about him for sure. Everything he does is about him. When he was convicted, it was, about him and how, he had been wronged and he had been set up, and him, everything is about him. When you look at Obama and you look at the way that he ran his presidential campaign and the way he ran his presidency, everything was about the other person. And this is the thing with projectors, is that they are all about the other person. They're about the collective, about humanity, about doing good and being the leader of that. So, one of the most famous things that Obama did, and, I don't know whether you agree with this or not, you may not do, there's two things really. First of all, he kind of like broke social norms because he was the first African-American president, which was amazing, by the way. I absolutely love this. But he also brought in Obamacare as well. And obviously this is to help other people. Right? It's nothing to do with him. It's to help other people. He doesn't need Obamacare, but other people do. And you'll find that a lot of what he did was trying to do what a president should be doing and really helping other people, the people that need help the most. And I think this is why Obama has a good reputation, and Trump probably has a very different reputation depending on who you speak to. Now, like I said, I'm not great with politics. I may have got that completely wrong. Maybe I should have dived into, what Obama did a little bit more. But generally, the consensus is that most people I speak to will like Obama, but then a lot of people I speak to with Trump, they either love him or they hate him. It's very Marmite. Okay, so that's kind of like giving you a little bit of an understanding of projectors, the way they lead, and how you can see the difference between certain people because of their human design chart. Obama was a 6'2", so he had a very sort of like a leadership role in, the 50 years plus. He had a quiet side of him, like a hermit side of him as well. And I just feel that there's, like a huge difference between those two men, and you can definitely see them in the human design chart. Okay, let's talk about the manifestor. So I wanted to talk about Maya Angelou specifically being one of the most impactful manifestors that we have had in our lifetime. So manifestors are very much leaders as well. They're not necessarily new age leaders. They don't necessarily sort of like, have they can bring change potentially, but they're here to bring impact to people. And again, it is all about, the people that they bring impact to rather than themselves. Probably very selfless, Maya Angelou, because she wants to make impact on other people and empower them to make the change that they need to within society. So I think, with what she did in her lifetime, with like how she managed to start changing people's perceptions in her lifetime, was extremely impactful. She will go down as a woman in history. She already has done, of course. She'll go down as a woman in history of having impact on this particular area, and that's exactly what a manifestor is here to do. The other thing in her chart that I really loved is she had gate 56 in her chart, quite a prominent position. It was in her unconscious moon. And the gate 56 is the gate of the storyteller. And this kind of like ability for her to be able to create stories of the past that kind of like really empower and uplift other people, to help them to not make the same mistakes or to feel like they're in a similar position. I think this ability to tell stories really did help the way that she was able to make impact in the world. So that's what I picked up from Maya Angelou's chart, and I just really love this person for being so, impactful. Actually, she was also splenic as well, so she was very, very intuitive. And I feel like if I was able to go back in time and meet her face to face, I feel as though I'd probably pick that up on her as well. So yeah, that was our manifestor. And then I alluded in my last episode to the fact that I also had a reflector that I wanted to talk about. So like I said, reflectors are very, very rare. So they're only 1% of the population. So when you look at, famous people, celebrities, actors, singers, politicians, whatever it is, it's likely that they will be one of the other four types, because of reflectors only being 1% of the population. However, there is a famous actress that has done very, very well in her career, and that is Sandra Bullock. So Sandra Bullock is a reflector. How amazing is that? And I feel like one of the reasons why she has been able to have such a good career is because she has all of these open centers. So when you have an open center, you are very wise to that particular energy. So you're taking in all of that energy and you're able to learn about it and understand it and emanate it. So I feel as an actress, this is very good for Sandra because she can take in the feelings, the thoughts, the understanding of the character that she's playing, and she's able to emanate that. She's able to reflect that character back at you. And I feel that that puts her in a really strong position. You might not agree with me. You might think she's not a very good actress at all. I mean, if you look at her in, Miss Congeniality, it's all very sort of like, it's all very laughable, isn't it? It's just a fun, it's just a fun movie. I actually personally love it. And you may not think she's a particularly good actress, but I feel like the way that she does act in all the different things that she does, feel like that's how that she's had success in her career. One other little thing about reflectors that I also want you to just have an experiment with is when you see a reflector like Sandra Bullock, and maybe it's a little bit different with acting because she's acting a person, right? But if you see her as her own true self, I want you to feel what comes back to you. I want you to feel, does she trigger me or does she make me feel good for some reason? And I want you to lean into that, and I want you to see what it is about reflectors that's reflecting back that you don't like about them. So let me give you a practical example. When I first found out about reflectors, I was sent an Instagram account of a very big influencer in the spiritual world. And I was told, okay, this person's a reflector, take a look and see what you think and then let me know. And this reflector, I watched her and I really didn't like her at all. And when she was talking, I felt that she was very stoic. She didn't have any expressions on her face. And I picked up that the reason why I didn't like her was because she was stoic. But if I look inside myself and if I look at the way that I think about myself or I worry about myself when I'm on camera or when I'm on my podcast, etc., I worry that I'm going to be stoic. Right. And even now that I've started my podcast and I see the reels that I can produce with my podcast platform, Riverside, I look at them and I'm like, oh, Charlie, can't you like bring some, some happiness to your face or something that's not stoic, right? To my face, some kind of emotion, right? So I do have this worry that I'm going to come across as stoic. And that's exactly what this reflector reflected back to me. It can go the other way, of course, as well. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. It doesn't have to be that a reflector can trigger you. It could be that a reflector reflects something back that they are, that this is something you like about yourself. And you go, oh, that person really articulates really well of who she is and what she does. And then you realize that if they're a reflector, you're like, oh, so I articulate what I do really, really well. And they're literally just reflecting back to you, about yourself, which I really love. So there we go. There's our three famous people who are projectors, manifestors, and reflectors. I hope you enjoyed this little sort of mini series that I've done. I actually really want to do this again, maybe once every couple of months or so. So if you've got a famous person that you really want me to kind of like analyze and see like, who they are and why, maybe they've ended up in a certain position in life, let me know and I will add them on to the next time that I do this. But for the time being, thank you so much for joining in. Thank you so much for listening to the Simple Human Design podcast. I'm Charlie, and I will see you again on the next episode.